little massage, out of the chair or
One
something.
One of those something. Yeah.
Something.
Holy
I'm
mackerel.
telling you.
Or the ability to be able to write
write a book like
zillions
that. Yeah.
of books.
Good week for your city of St. Louis.
It's potentially historic if what happened over the past week becomes something that community leaders can build on. We had the announcement that the NGA plans to go in Northside. It's, not everything is signed yet,
Right.
but that's where the director of the NGA wants to put it, and his arguments were clear and concise, and there was no wiggle room, and that's just a huge win for St. Louis that could potentially change the North Side, change downtown, change everything. And then you had the election on Tuesday, in which voters very clearly, with no the votes weren't close.
Right. The ones
I'm not sitting in the Harry Potter chair, so I can't come up with the words.
The ones who could find the ballots overwhelmingly voted to keep the
well, the
earnings
city
tax.
didn't have problems.
Right.
The county had problems. But so you had the earnings tax approved by more than 70% of the voters. Basically saying, look, we get it. We understand why we pay this tax. We like having police and firefighters, and it's the most progressive fair tax of the ones that are tossed out there as possibilities, including increased sales tax or increased property tax. You had voters approve a bond issue, which is interesting because they had turned one down last year. You had voters approve higher taxes for their schools, make an investment in the local schools, and they hadn't done that in a couple of decades.
Which was a nice chunk of change that they passed. Yeah.
And so this is the city saying, hey, you know what? We want some good things to happen. That's a lot of positive in a very short period of time. Mayor Slade deserves some credit. I've criticized him for not being focused enough on NGA at certain times, and I wondered about their earnings tax strategy. But hey, they won, and they won big, and it is a great week for St. Louis. My column on Friday, which will publish on STL Today later this afternoon, talks about these issues. And the point that I make is, if we're going to be successful in St. Louis, if we're going to build on this week has to be a beginning. It can't be an end. We can't all break our elbows patting ourselves on the back.
Right.
I suggest that the next thing we ought to be focused on, if we're really going to think big, is North-South Metrolink.
Yeah, that's thinking big, and you like to slam your head up against the wall time and time again.
Yes,
talking
I do.
about that.
Yes, I do.
But all right, before we talk about Northwest Metrolink.
North-South.
North-South.
I know you
Metrolink.
want West.
I'd love
Yeah.
right from my house to my office. I would love one. But I asked Senator Blunt this earlier, and a lot of people are skeptical because the Arch was going to revitalize downtown. The new Dome was going to revitalize downtown. Washington Avenue was going to revitalize downtown. Busch Stadium, Ballpark Village, the Scott Trade Center. I mean, all of these things, right? Oh, wait till this happens. Wait till the new City Center Mall opens up. This is going to revitalize. And it all it's a whole lot of bluster, but not a lot afterwards.
What do every single one of the examples that you just mentioned have in common?
They all failed.
No, they're all downtown.
Yes.
They're all downtown. NGA is going in the north side, the area of the city that has been neglected for decades. And the north side connects a large area of residential, or at least historically residential, with the things that are going on downtown. Cortex and the hospital complex, BJC.
Right.
This is the first time in our city's history, if you read Colin Gordon's book, Mapping Decline, that looks at how St. Louis went from the fourth largest city in the country to where it is now. It's because we always made the same decisions. We always said, let's give a tax break to this tiny little area, this primarily in downtown, but mostly in the central corridor, and let's ignore the rest of the city, primarily the African-American North Side. This is the first major multi-billion-dollar development to be focused on the North Side, and that adds value to the investments that we've made downtown. It's completely different than any of the other things that city leaders have talked about previously, saying this is the next big thing.
The other criticism, or the other question mark, I guess, is they say this is a spy agency. they're going to go in. They're going to have secure gates. They're going to use their passcode. They're going to go in, and then they're going to go home. They're not going to walk on campus. They're not going to go to pick up their dry cleaning and go to lunch on Washington Avenue and do all these other things. It's a spy agency, so it's going to be enclosed only in their compound, outside world not being able to let in, or vice versa.
That is a fair criticism, and there's and the people that are ultimately going to have to manage the development, including Paul McKee, who owns most of the land around there in his Northside Regeneration Project, have to be focused on that, because indeed it's not like the sort of development that a manufacturing plant, for instance, would have, where the employees are going to come from the local area. Right. Most of the NGA employees, the existing ones, already live in our community. 70% of them live in Missouri. Some of them are my neighbors on the west side. And what they tell me is they wanted it here because they didn't want to have to go all the way over to Scott Air Force Base in Illinois.
Right, they didn't want to cross the ocean.
So there is a benefit to the entire community because we're keeping people in our community. But keep in mind, this is a multi-billion-dollar construction project that's going to start in a year or two. That is going to create some local jobs immediately, and there will have to be some service-type businesses that come up in that area to help serve the construction folks and everything else. The other thing that's going to happen, though, is for the employees to get to and from NGA cleanly and quickly so they can get home. Speaking of which, driving 40 on Tuesday and Thursday is killing me.
Not fun.
I got to go to Google and find a new way to get to your fine studios here. It's just absolutely killing me. So, but part of what's going to happen, and this is somewhat related to the city passing a bond issue, is the city is now going to invest in Jefferson and Cass in roads that have been ignored. And so when the city invests in those areas, when Paul McKee starts putting his money into sewers and roads and all of those things in that area, that's going to spur more development. There are plans on the books for housing projects in that area, and for retail in that area, and for hospital in that area. Those things are going to happen now that there is a reason to invest in the infrastructure in the area. And while it won't be the same development that you would get out of a manufacturing plant put there, you will get massive investment in an area that's been ignored for decades.
Columnist for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, friend of the show. He's so tired of Highway 40 traffic, he wants to propose a north-south metro link.
You got it. You got it. Think big, St. Louis.
We'll deal with that next time. Tony, have a good week.
Thanks.
826 here, Big 550, KTRS. Looking for an